In your time in New York,
Mhm.
you had a variety of jobs. Tell me about some of those other roles.
Very much so. Well, I actually, hilariously, I have a degree in technical theater, theater technology, a BA in theater, focus on tech, however you want to look at it. And I did not move to New York for theater. Oddly enough, at that
What?
point, I know, crazy, right? At that point in my life, I was already, and I was 28, a little disenchanted with the entertainment industry, which is a tough industry, in many ways, in the fact that it is very much prone to producing martyrs, honestly, people that will
Mm.
work themselves to death for almost no money. And they thrive on that. It thrives on that. The industry couldn't survive without that. Which I have issues with, and I think one should have issues with. On the other hand, the cool things I learned to do is cannot be understated. So when I was moving to New York, I was in Baltimore for about 8 years. And when I was leaving Baltimore, I was traveling a lot. I was, there were several years there, like golden years, where I spent the winter backpacking, like around Europe, around Central America, South America. I went to India, Australia, New Zealand, um, all over. And then I would come back, and in the summer, I continued to manage swim and tennis club for a little bit. And then I found an artist who was a glass and metal artist. He did fabulous stuff. It was Holy Terra Studios in Baltimore. Um, yeah, in a neighborhood called Hamden. And he was a decent welder, but it wasn't actually his forte. So I actually went in as his welder, and I used to go in and weld his art together. And then he taught me how to do stained glass work, and that's why I got a little more into more of a sculpture, artistic exposure. Um, Not to say that I learned to be an artist or a sculptor at all, but I got a lot of exposure to it, which is a huge part of learning anything. And so I did that, and I kind of like tooled around there. And then at one point, oh yes, when I was at Baltimore School for the Arts, I took my students on an educational tour to Spain. And while I was over there, I was kind of watching everyone. And later on, a few years later, it like reoccurred to me that like that could be a job for me. And so I actually went into educational tour guiding, and I did that for many years. And that's a spring job essentially. And it was kind of perfect because I was like, finally, my love of useless, completely random facts is relevant to something that pays me money. And it was great. And I loved it. It would take a lot of a lot of eighth grade trips. Like when you learn about American history in eighth grade, a lot of times you take a trip afterwards. So if you were extra lucky on your trip, you get picked up at the airport by me, and we would spend 3 to 5 or 7 days together. And I would take kids. I did tour guiding, tour directing in Boston, New York, DC, Philly, Williamsburg, and the Civil War battlefields. And then I was a licensed tour guide in New York, and I tour guide in DC. I never got my license though, so go on, tell